Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to the Ingles Furman Radio Network Preview of this week's huge Southern Conference matchup between the Furman Paladins and the Mercer Bears down in Macon, Georgia. I am Dan Scott, voice of the Paladins. Good to have you with us as we get set for a game that could be a playoff position clincher for either of these teams with a win. We'll talk about that coming up in just a moment, and it sets up the first of two incredibly important and huge weekends to close the Southern Conference regular season. We're going to take a look at the standings in a moment. And boy, there are going to be some happy teams come postseason. There are going to be some teams that are very unhappy, thinking that they have a playoff worthy resume. Bottom line is only 24 teams get in. There are 11 automatic qualifiers, and that leaves 13 at-large bids for the FCS playoffs. So there are going to be some teams that are left out. Generally speaking, the Southern Conference has been good more often than not for two teams. There have been some years where they've gotten three. They have not gotten four in the field since 2016. So those are the odds that you're looking at. There are people who will talk about bias in other conferences and other regions of the country, and perhaps some of that is warranted. But the bottom line for Clay Hendricks's team, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of most people, they control their own destiny. A win over Mercer on Saturday, and then a win to close out things with Wofford, finish 7-1 in the conference. You'll be a top 10 team by virtue of wins in both of those games. You have to believe that that would take care of business. I personally believe a win this week over Mercer takes care of business. And for Mercer, I think the same thing is true. A win over Furman should pretty much lock up a playoff bid for them. I say should because, again, we're going to look at the conference standings coming up here a bit and the upcoming schedule. And there's a lot that could happen. And if you operate under the premise that at best you're going to get three teams in, at best, then who's going to be left out between Samford, Chattanooga, Furman, and Mercer? You can make a case that all four of those teams deserve to be in. The likelihood of that happening, not very good. And I think there's probably, again, judging by the recent history, you may only see two teams in this league get in, despite the fact that three are definitely warranted, and you can make an argument for four. So these last 2 weeks, I mean, this is why you play. You want to be in this position. You want games that matter. And as we get into this Furman and Mercer matchup, man, you talk about a lot on the line. This is what November football is all about. Let's show you the top half of the Furman game notes. And by the way, as you can see, no doubt, doing this from my home studio again this week. So I hope you enjoy the backdrop. But looking at the top half of Furman's game notes here, just to kind of put in perspective what we have. Why is this game so huge? Well, Furman continues to inch up the rankings, number 13 in the media poll, number 16 in the coaches poll, and Mercer is number 14 in the media poll, but number 11 in the coaches poll. So this is a big resume building win for both of these teams. And when you look at the recent series history, I have highlighted in blue down at the bottom. Furman has won 4 of the last 7 games. The series, Furman leads 10-8 with 2 ties, but it was a series that between 1937 and 2013, of course, was dormant because Mercer did not play football during that time frame. We all know as well, you've got the huge matchup from a coaching standpoint. Clay Hendricks came here in 2017. His offensive coordinator that first year was a guy by the name of Drew Cronick. Cronick left to go coach Division II Lenore-Rhine, was incredibly successful there, and then took over the Mercer program and has them absolutely rolling. You can see at the bottom of the screen, we've got some things scrolling, including the Southern Conference schedule, as well as some of the team numbers. And when you start looking at the comparison, Mercer has scored 40 points a game on average, and that takes into account the game that they lost to Chattanooga by a 41-21 score, and the Paladins 30.5 points. Both teams give up right around 19 points a game. Furman just a tick under, or just a tick over, rather. Mercer just a tick under. It's a game you go back to a year ago. The Paladins lost that game 24-3. Turned it over 4 times, had a kick blocked. 2 of those turnovers came inside the 10-yard line. Held Mercer to just 3 points in the second half, but could never get anything going on the offensive end of the football. And I talked with Clay Hendricks and both coordinators, as I always do, for the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff. That will air beginning at 1:30 on the Fan Upstate on Saturday, tomorrow, as I'm recording this on Friday. And Clay said that was a frustrating afternoon, coming off of playing NC State the week before, in which they were not competitive at all against the Wolfpack up in Raleigh. He says this is a very, very different Furman football team, and we have seen that. The Paladins, undefeated on the road in the conference, have won 4 straight road games total since, for the first time since 1999. This would be a 5th consecutive road win, and again, would be just another check mark on that resume box. But same thing for Mercer, and that's why this game is going to be so much fun, because there's so much on the line for both of these teams. I mentioned the fact that we'll take a look at the Southern Conference standings and why you start to play that game now. Who is going to be guaranteed a spot? Who may get left out? Well, here's what it looks like. Samford right now still undefeated in the league at 6-0. They have Chattanooga this week and Mercer next week. Then Chattanooga, Furman, and Mercer all sitting there at 5-1. And there's been that clear line of demarcation in this league for a long time this season. Nobody else with more than 2 wins in conference play, and VMI still looking for its first conference win. But again, look at that. 4 teams, all with legitimate playoff resumes. 2 weeks to go in the regular season. Who is going to see those playoff dreams realized? Who is going to finish 2022 heartbroken? Could we see the anomaly of 2016 repeat itself, where there are 4 teams from this conference that get in? You'd like to think that's a possibility. The chances of it happening, I think, are very, very slim. I think we'll be best served in this league, or not best served, but I think the best you can hope for is 3 teams get in, and maybe just 2 going by recent history. But you look at that conference standings, or those conference standings, and I'm telling you, it is going to be just an incredibly entertaining last 2 weeks of this regular season. Paladins, of course, coming off a bye week. So are the Mercer Bears. And talking with Justin Roper, the offensive coordinator, he said he can't ever remember coaching in a game, or maybe even playing in a game, where both teams are coming off a bye the same week. He said it's actually made preparation a little bit easier, because you don't have to wait for the game film of the team that plays the week that you're off to watch that and factor that into your preparation. The other side of it is, in talking with Clay in the pregame interview, which you'll hear coming up prior to the game, he said that, this is a deal where when you've got 2 weeks to prepare, he figures that Mercer will probably have some new wrinkles. And he said, you know what? So will we. Go back to the Chattanooga game, and Furman showed something to the Mocs offensively that the Chattanooga defense had not seen from the Paladins on film all year long, and that was what they did in the running game with Tyler Huff. So that's out there on film now. You have to think that Mercer will be preparing for that. What else do you do? That's why these chess matchups are so much fun, when you start preparing for games as coaches, and looking ahead as broadcasters and trying to figure these things out. We know this from the Mercer offense. We saw it with Drew Cronick here, Clay Hendricks' first year in 2017. It's the wing tee. They have evolved a little bit where they're doing more of that out of the shotgun or out of the pistol, depending on the formation. But it is an offense that's going to, in a lot of ways, and maybe even more so than a team that runs a triple option, the wing tee is going to give you a lot of eye candy. There's going to be a lot of motion, a lot of misdirection. And what they are trying to do is get defenses, A, their eyes in the wrong place, and B, to slow down the aggressiveness. And you go back to 2017, how many times did we see a Furman receiver, particularly the tight end, running free behind the opposing team's secondary? That's what they like to do. They don't do it so much with the tight end. Their offense primarily comes down to quarterback Fred Payton, who has already thrown for 2,242 yards and 28 touchdowns on the season. And then two outstanding wide receivers, Ty James, who has 37 catches for 739 yards, averages 20 yards a grab, 10 touchdowns. And then Devron Harper, 52 catches, 670 yards, 12.9 yards a catch, also 10 touchdowns. James averages 82 yards in receptions per game. Harper averages 74 and a half per game. And then the tight end, 10 catches, 112 yards. That is Drake Starks. But that's the third highest amount of receptions on the season behind James and Harper. So those two are the primary playmakers. They will try to run the football to set up all of that stuff. Their leading rusher is Al Wooten, 419 yards, averaging 3.9 yards a carry. So don't have maybe the dominant running game that you'd want to have in this, but they run it well enough that you have to respect it. And in talking with Dwayne Vaughn just yesterday, talking about having to have your eyes in the right place, yes, but then getting your cleats in the turf, as he described it, and still being aggressive. That's what Mercer wants to do. They want to take that aggressiveness away from you because you're thinking, you're watching all these other things going on. The other thing Mercer has done very well is protect the quarterback. They have only allowed 3 sacks all season long. And, they've allowed 5 sacks all season long. And part of that is due to getting the ball out quickly, moving the pocket, and the fact that Payton is very, very good with his legs. So it's going to be a challenge on both sides of the ball. Can Furman maintain the defensive integrity as well as the aggressiveness it's going to take to be successful? And then when it comes to offense, the Paladins want to run the football. No secret about that. Rushing it is Furman for 224 yards per game. Mercer allows 108 yards rushing per game. So it's a similar type of situation that the Paladins faced statistically going into the Chattanooga game 2 weeks ago. And adding Tyler Huff into the mix found a way to really run the football effectively. Dominic Roberto did not play in the second half against Chattanooga, had a little bit of a shoulder stinger. He is fine. The Paladins are as healthy as they have been in a long time, including getting Dawan Wilkins back for the first time since the Charleston Southern game. He will primarily play on special teams for Furman this weekend. I'm telling you, it is going to be a fun matchup. These are the types of games that you love to broadcast. And from a player and coach standpoint, as we've talked about with Clay this week, this is why they do what they do, to be in these kind of games with this much on the line late in the season. It's going to be an absolute blast, and I can't wait to get things rolling. Again, we're recording and dropping this early on Friday. Kickoff is 3 p.m. on Saturday in Macon, Georgia. And that means that the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff on the Ingles Furman Radio Network will begin at 1:30 p.m. And, of course, that is via the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 in Spartanburg, and everywhere on the Odyssey app. Just search the Fan Upstate. Don't want to forget that tonight, Friday night, is a huge men's basketball matchup. Furman and Belmont at Timmons Arena, a 7 p.m. tip-off. Hopefully, if you see this in time, this will serve as a reminder to come out and enjoy that game. If you can't make it, this also will be on the Fan Upstate, beginning with the pregame, the Pepsi pregame at 6:30 p.m. Two of the best mid-majors in the country going head-to-head at Timmons Arena. That is kind of the warm-up act, if you will, for this football game tomorrow. A pair of huge Furman events, basketball tonight, and a major, major clash in the Southern Conference on the gridiron tomorrow down in Macon. And I am blessed to have the privilege to call both of those, good Lord willing. So we will see you first at basketball tonight, and then tomorrow in Macon for Furman and Mercer. Hope that you can make it. And if not, again, it's all available for you via the Fan Upstate. Until basketball tonight, I am Dan Scott, as always, saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.